Welcome to the Managing the Smart Mind podcast with your host, Coach Kramer. This is episode 51, How to Stop Feeling Guilty All the Time. Hello, smart human. Do you have a hard time setting boundaries? Do you feel like you're trying to please people all the time? Then underneath that behavior, you may be experiencing something that is called pervasive guilt. It's a feeling that you're constantly letting down other people and yourself. And if you're thinking, hey, yeah, I am, but just tell me how to set boundaries already, do not worry, that episode is coming too. But as I was preparing said episode on boundaries, I realized there was something I needed to address first. And that is the guilt so many smart humans experience. Guilt about being more successful than other members of their family. Guilt about being smart. I actually talked about this earlier in the episode on gifted guilt. Guilt about not being interested in some people, right? Guilt about not being the perfect parent, partner, child. Guilt about not being able to plan or be productive in a linear, quote unquote, normal way. So much guilt. And the thing with guilt is that if you allow it to live in lots of areas of your life, it can create nasty side effects like decreased self-worth, imposter syndrome, anxiety, rumination, loneliness, depression, etc., etc. Right? This type of guilt is toxic and it is not at all useful, contrary to what you might believe. Now, let's first look at what guilt is and what it isn't. I like to define guilt as the feeling that arises in your body when you compare what you did in a certain situation with what you think you should have done and decide that you fall short. And I'll repeat that because it's a lot to take in. Guilt is the feeling that arises in your body when you compare what you did in a certain situation with what you think you should have done and decide that you fall short. So, on an abstract level, guilt is about your actions or inactions, right? And it may actually be useful to compare it to shame in this respect, which is more about who you are, your identity. For example, you can feel guilty about drinking too much last Friday and shame about being a person who drinks more than they want to, right? If that makes sense. You can feel guilty about not shipping your presentation in time, and you feel shame about being a person who doesn't meet their deadlines. Now, most people distinguish two types of guilt, and this is a very important distinction to make. Some call it rational versus irrational guilt. Others call it earned versus unearned guilt, which by the way, I think is such a misnomer because the whole earned guilt thing, it's not a great way to prime your brain in thinking about guilt. So I prefer to call it real versus unreal guilt. And the difference is this. We absolutely want to feel guilty about some of our actions. It can be a useful emotion, right? To help us grow and help us sort of decide what we want to change in the way we show up in the world. For example, when I snap at my child, I want to feel bad about that because that is out of alignment with my core values. So in this case, the guilt I feel is rational, or in my preferred terminology, real. But when I feel guilty about turning down an invitation to someone's birthday party, that guilt is unreal. And you may be wondering why. Well, because it is not my core value to show up to everyone's birthday party. Just saying that sounds hilarious. And if you're thinking, but what if my core value is to be there for my friends? Bear with me because we'll dive into the nuances later. Basically, know that real guilt arises when you do something out of alignment with your core values And unreal guilt arises when you do something that is not aligned with how you think you should be, do, act, right? Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking through what to do when you feel real guilt. Basically, if you can, try to make amends and not do the same thing in the future. And there's plenty of resources on this on the internet if this is something you're struggling with. But it is the unreal guilt I want to focus on today. The guilt we feel because we do, want, think, have things that don't line up with the idealized image we have of ourselves. And when it comes to enjoying ourselves, we even have a term for it, right? Guilty pleasure, for things we actually enjoy but disapprove of. We're basically saying to ourselves, I enjoy this thing, but really shouldn't. Because in the idealized picture of yourself, you probably do not binge watch reality TV, read romance novels, play computer games, or whatever your guilty pleasure is. Maybe instead of reading young adult fiction and massively enjoying it, you think you should be reading serious stuff, quote unquote serious, like Shakespeare or Plato or Foucault, right? And the problem with doing this, nice as it may sound, right, aspirational as it may sound, is you're actually constantly undermining your own self-worth by telling yourself that what I want, what I enjoy isn't right. And then your brain thinks, okay, I am not right? I am not a good person. And this comparison with an idealized version of yourself and then falling short can show up in so many areas of your life, right? Around health and fitness, when you think, oh, I should be thinner, or I should have more muscle, or I should work out more, I should be fitter, etc., etc. In relationships, when you think, I should be a better lover, I should be the heart of the party, I should feel a deeper connection to this person, and so on and so forth. Around wealth and finance and career, when you have thoughts like, I shouldn't want to make more money, I already have it so good, or I should want to make more money, I should be more ambitious, or I shouldn't be so much more successful than my parents or siblings, or I should give more to charity. And around productivity, I should get more done, I should work harder, I should be more focused. I could go on forever, right? And here are some examples of what I often hear my clients imply when I see them suffer from unreal guilt. These are thoughts like, I shouldn't make other people feel bad. I shouldn't rock the boat. I shouldn't be so lazy. So many shoulds and so much guilt for not living up to them. And now you may be thinking, but hang on, can't these be core beliefs? Like, I shouldn't make other people feel bad, or I shouldn't rock the boat, or I shouldn't be so lazy. No, this is unreal guilt, because these shoulds, basically, this idealized version you're comparing yourself with is impossible. It's a perfectionist fantasy. It's impossible to never make other people feel bad, right? Some people will get annoyed by the mere fact that you exist, right? They may hate your face. I know it sucks, but it could be something completely innocuous you say, and that makes them feel bad. It's just nothing you can do about it. So all of these are perfectionist fantasies, right? So if you have all these underlying shoulds, these impossible, invisible rules for how you have to live your life running in the background of your mind, then you are going to feel an awful lot of guilt, right? This is the pervasive guilt that makes you feel miserable. So you really want to start separating the real from the unreal guilt. And here's how. First of all, ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling guilty about? And then check, is this a breach of a core value, right? Did I lie and my core value is not to lie? Then you know. If you're not sure if something is a core value or a perfectionist fantasy, then imagine, could it be achieved in reality, right? And you want to look for words like always or never. They're usually giveaways. And you can also ask yourself, is this something like a demand I would make of another human being? And if the answer is no, then you know, right? Now, if it's something you genuinely regret doing, make amends, figure out how to avoid doing it again. Learn from it. But if it arises from a should that isn't realistic, start first of all with noticing and honoring that. And then let go of the unreal guilt by accepting that you have set an impossible standard for yourself. So there's nothing you need to feel guilty about. And then modify your perfectionistic underlying belief into something more realistic that you can actually honor. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I used to give all the humans time of day wherever I went, right? Before I discovered coaching, whether it was in my business or on the train, anybody who wanted to ask me a question, pick my brain, share their life story with me, they had my ear. And this could go on for hours and actually resulted in a lot of eye rolling by my husband if we were traveling together. But at the time, I believed that I had this core value, which is all humans deserve my attention. All humans are equally worthy of my attention. And just writing it down and reading it, I can now see how completely impossible this was. I mean, all the humans, I can't even give 1,000 or 100 of them my undivided attention. So how can I rewrite this unreal core value, which creates unreal guilt if I don't honor it? It could be something like, I love to open up to people I meet if I have the time and energy. I love to answer people's questions if I have room in my schedule, for example. I want to be kind and compassionate towards people I meet and interact with them in a way that feels good to me in the moment. Now, this way I get to set a kind of standard that honors my human needs rather than working from some saintly fantasy. I need to be there for everyone, right? Kind of rescuer syndrome. Now, if you feel like you should always be there for your friends or family or, whoever, remember the birthday example earlier, how could you rewrite that? It could go something like this. I want to honor my friends' needs in a way that doesn't clash with my own. I always want to be there for my children and myself. Or even by getting specific. Let's say you have ailing parents you want to support. You can decide that I want to dedicate X hours a week to supporting my parents, right? And remember, you get to decide. It's massively important. Now, last but not least, you want to become aware of where you believe that how you are is wrong, right? And you feel guilty. So this is about your identity. And again, this is where also the smart shaming, etc., the gift of guilt comes in. If you believe you should be ashamed for having it so good, you may actually need to spend some more time with that, sitting in the emotions, sitting with everything that is being triggered by those beliefs and maybe all the childhood priming, right? The inner internalized voices you have to process some emotions around that too. And that is work you can do either with a therapist or a coach who's experienced in handling that. But whatever you do over the next week, please start unearthing your unreal beliefs, right? Notice when the guilt creeps up and then figure out, is it real or unreal? And when necessary, change the underlying belief that caused it. You really cannot like all the humans, nor should you want to. You cannot be an amazing lover all the time. You cannot be productive 24/7. And you cannot be responsible, this is a biggie, for other people's emotions. You can have thoughts and beliefs that empower you so that you are left with much more energy to actually be a wonderful friend, parent, partner, human. So that you get to be a smart human being that thrives. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.